I'm your host, Kinetic, and you're watching GameOnEnd. Hello, welcome to our add-on series. Today we'll take a look at add-ons for your unit frames. We're using the add-on control panel to enable and disable as we go. Let's take a look at the first add-on. Our first add-on here is called Bike Unit Frame. Now a couple of these to start with are pretty basic. They just make some changes to the default unit frame to make it look a little more customized. Some are super simple. So let's take a look here at what options are available. So in this one, looks like can just modify your unit frame. You can change the color of the frame and the transparency. You can remove your cast bar from your frame if you like. You can change the health bar to follow the class colors. You can change from portrait or just a class icon. And then you've got a couple of textures to choose from for the status bar itself. And then you can save profiles if you like different things for different characters. Pretty simple, but if that's all you're looking for is just that little bit of customization, might be a good choice. Okay, let's take a look at the next add-on. We have BD unit frames. Okay, so BD unit frames is an actual unit frame replacement. Pretty simple little bars here. Let's take a look at the options. So it seems that this BD core is also changing some other things, like the system font is different. So just be aware of that. It is making some more changes than just the unit frames. To get to your add-on settings, you need to type /BD config. And that will bring up this configuration menu here. We've got different profiles that we can do. We can unlock and move around frames wherever we need to, which this is a really nice feature. Be able to just do like nudges and stuff versus just guessing if they're lined up. Also gives you this cool grid. So cool little features. The other things that we have here, as I said before, we have the fonts. We can change the system fonts. We can change the background textures for things. It's also got some other little UI elements, such as being able to block error text in your chat window. You can tell it whether you want the add-on to actually change the fonts up here for the entire UI or if you just want it to change for the add-on. It's got interrupts announcing. Nice little thing, you won't have to install an extra add-on for. Adds a feature in the auction house window where if you search for an item, you can double click on it and buy it out right there. And some scale adjustments. You also have whether the add-on is skinning other elements, such as if you run weak auras, it can add this the look of this add-on to those things. and then you can also replace the game menu. You've got lots of options here for what kinds of buffs and debuffs you'd like to show. You can block certain things that you don't want to see. And then the unit frames themselves, you can disable the cast bars if you use a different add-on for that. You can show or hide the buffs on your target. A lot of flexibility here. You can change size of bars. You can change the size of the icons. You can also customize your focus, and then target of target and your pet, and then the boss frames, which if you also use a separate add-on for that, you can just disable. So a lot of features, but still really simple, really easy to understand what everything is and what it does. Okay, let's take a look at the next add-on. We've got easy frames. Alright, so this is another basic unit frame modification. We still have the look and feel of the original frames, but just with some tweaks. So let's bring up the menu by typing /EF. And a lot of options here. Class colored health bars. The frames to be hidden when you're out of combat, different textures, the light and dark textures for these frames around, and then you can also hide that border if you want the texture for that. You can customize the size of buffs and debuffs. You can do highlighting of dispellable buffs, debuffs. You can also limit the number that are shown, and then you can also do a little bit of customization of the target bars. Let's take a look here. You can also customize based on the individual units. So those initial settings were universal to like all the frames. These will show customization for individual for player settings. Settings for the target window. For your focus. Pet. Party. And then save for different profiles. So a lot of tweaks to the default UI, but still gives you that kind of standard feel. And of course, as always, you can unlock the frames and move those to wherever you would like. And then if you lose frames, whatever, you can always do a reset there in those options. Okay, let's take a look at the next add-on. We're going to take a look at shadowed unit frames. Now, shadowed is another full-featured unit frame replacement. Let's take a look at the options. You can pull that up by typing /SUF. Now this one is pretty in-depth. We'll take a look at the options here, but we won't go too far into it. But if you really want to tweak, this is definitely an option that gives you a lot of control. So we have general settings to the add-on, such as hiding tooltips on things, disabling cooldown counts. Of course, can change the textures, and you've got a lot of options here. You can change the border, the background, the font. Then we've got lots of options for color. Another nice little touch here is things that are customized to your class, such as here on the monk we have stagger. So it can color to show you how much of your damage you've got staggered, which is a nice little thing. You don't need a separate add-on to, show you possibly when you need to clear or things like that. You can also customize the class colors, which is a nice little touch if you've got a different color scheme you like. You have range check, which allows you to load in the spell you prefer, such as a heal or something, or a dispel, and you can put these things in, and this will basically let you know if the player is out of range of those things. Of course, have profiles. Now here's where it gets into the flexibility of the add-on. You can enable or disable specific unit frames that you would like to add on to handle. So if you would like it to just do your unit, and then you would like to unlock and drag these down here, but then have the default party frames or boss raid frames, etc., you can have those enabled or disabled. If you would like it to handle arena unit frames, you can do that. Battleground targets. A lot you can do here. Any unit that you add or disable is added or removed from this list here, and then that lets you customize per unit frame the settings. So let's say we have our party unit frames enabled, which we've checked here. So we can come in and enable or disable the portrait. We can do 3D portraits. We can do fading when out of combat. We can do range indicators. We can show who has aggro, who is our target or focus, and then showing combat text for that unit frame. A lot of settings here as well for the party, like if we want it to be shown when we're in a raid, or if we want it disabled. You can change the size and scale of the bars for the party frame. And then lots of option here is whether you would like to see power bars such as mana or energy, etc. And class coloring on those. The health bar, of course, you can customize. I mean, just a ton of options here. You can see cast bars. And then little things such as the portrait, if you'd like it to be shown as a bar, which would move that to being a bar. And you can move that up or down the bar, as we can see here. So we can change the height of this just so we can see what we're looking at. Just a ton of options here. Can really dial this into the way you would like, and with the profiles it's definitely going to help. You can have a profile set up for tanking, profile set up for healing, and for DPS, which each of those roles requires pretty different things. As a healer, you may need to see all of your raid frames and your party that you may be responsible for all right in the center of your window, versus being on a DPS, you may just want those things minimized or at the least out of the way. So a lot of options here. You can of course enable and disable certain things that you would like to see or not see. You can do it by class. So any things that you would not like to see. You can really simplify this down to just the things you really would like to know, which makes it a lot easier, especially for raiding or for PvP. These kind of settings can really be critical to, knowing when you need to dispel, when you need to interrupt, those type of things. And then, of course, just the disabling of the default frames. If for some reason you wanted to still have the default party frames shown, you can do that. And then even getting down to customizing by zone. So in arenas you may want to see enemy cast bars, but in a battleground you may not, or in an instance you may not. But you can do that. You can get as into this as you would like, or just leaving it out of the box, and they're going to work in most situations. Alright, let's take a look at the next add-on. We have stuff unit frames. So this is another replacement. Again, we've just got a ton of options here. We can go into a configuration mode and see what we're looking at. This is obviously just giving us dummy indicators of where everything would be, so that we can see the layout. So of course, if we want to move things, we can. Can make any layout you'd like. And of course then we can get into the configuration of each unit frame. A cool feature here is that if you get one unit frame set up the way you'd like, and then would like to just copy those settings, it has a copy here. So if you get your unit frame set up a particular way and you just want to copy that to, say, the target or to your party and just have them all uniform, you can. And then we have all of these options for the individual unit frames. So we can enable or disable portraits, change textures, size, position, and down the line. The text information for every bar. You can customize the layout of the text if you'd just like to see percentages, just your max HP. And so forth. You can modify the combat text, the font of the combat text, little things like what group you're in, buff icons, debuffs, PvP status, rest status, if you're the leader of the group, what the loot type is for the group, target icons, your cast bars, which you can customize separately, of course, if you'd like different textures on those things. So pretty cool. And then we've got all the same options for the more major unit frames. And then you can get down to customizing everything from your party members' targets, arena frames, arena targets, and then with the separate module Stuff Raid, you can add in those units. Pretty nice as well. Alright, let's take a look at the next add-on. We have Z-Pearl unit frames. So we type /Z-Pearl to get into the menu. Now again, this is a very full-featured add-on. Really just a ton of options. So we have a lot of things here with each frame, and then global settings. We can show or hide pretty much anything and customize pretty much anything. We can do range finding, we can do debuff, highlighting, show or hide buff, debuff, can have fading, you can do customization based on per character settings, and you can save profiles. So again, a nice option to have. You know, you may want, if you play different roles, may want different layouts for those different things. And then you can get into the customization of each unit frame. and so forth. Now for our target, we've got a lot of options here for target of target. If you need to see their buffs, debuffs, especially helpful for PvP arenas. Can move around the display of pretty much all the different things, combo points. It's a nice little touch if you have something like a mage with spell steal. You can have buffs that can be stolen off of enemy targets highlighted and shown larger. It's a really great feature for arenas especially. Can switch to a healer mode, which just shows the health deficits instead, which is kind of cool. And then the customization for the raid frames, which of course you can lay out any way you would like. You can change the grouping. Instead of being by the actual raid groups, you can have them grouped by class or alphabetical or by role. You can show the pets of raid members if you need that. You can also do healer mode for the raid frames. And then you've got some settings here that apply to all of the frames. If you just want to turn certain features off. Or healer mode for everything. The coloring, frame, transparency of most of the items. Can also enable this helper window, which allows you to see a lot of different things, including the targets of tanks, can have the tooltips shown if you would like. And what's cool with this is that as, say, a tank or as a healer especially, you can see who's currently targeting you to heal. And you can see other people that are targeting my target. So right now I'm targeting me, so it shows myself. Again, another pretty full-featured add-on that lets you do a lot of customization, or you can use it out of the box and it will still work great. Now, our next add-on is OUF. Now, this one works a little bit differently than the others in that the unit frame add-on itself doesn't have a visual appearance to it. It's just the framework for unit frame customization. You need to then choose a visual layout for the add-on and install that separately. There's a lot of these. Pelham here is one of the authors of OUF, so we're going to go ahead and use his layout to show you this. But keep in mind that the look of this add-on is completely up to you. There are dozens of looks that you can download and install, and you can even download and install different ones if you would like, say, different layouts for healer or tank, etc. You could have one look that is set up for a healer layout and another look, and then you can just toggle between those two, or just have different ones load per character. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. So, pretty simple layout here. There are really no options for these layouts. Now, the thing with these add-ons is that it comes down more to finding the one that you like out of the box. You can move them around in most cases, but really they're designed to be kind of just install it and go type unit frame modifications. So you really need to install a few, play around with them. You can of course look at almost all of them have screenshots for them that will show you. Now, another thing to be aware of with these is that they differ per layout on which frames they actually affect. Some don't modify, say like the raid frames, or even some of them don't modify the party frames. Most of them at the least do your unit frame, the target, and the target of target, and your pet, and the party. But beyond that, it varies from layout to layout. So you really have to download a few and find one that works for you. But if you really don't want to get into a lot of those heavier add-ons that need a lot of tweaking to get it to look the way you want, try out OUF. Take a look through all of the layouts that are available and see if there's one that really seems to connect with you right off the bat, and install that and play with it. And the thing is, you can install as many of these as you'd like and switch back and forth between them with an add-on such as Add-on Control Panel, and quickly just, put one in and jump into a battleground and see how the party frames look, raid frames look. Jump into a dungeon, see how the cast bars look, and see if it's something that you like. The other thing with OUF is that people make plugin modules for this. Now, the plugin modules do need to be supported, so it is possible that you can install a plugin that is not supported by the layout that you're using. Now, to try and put that as simply as possible, we have a plugin here called Dispellable. Now, what this plugin should do is, if my party, if a member of my party gets a debuff that I am able to dispel, it will give me a highlight for that, a visual indicator that I can dispel something that's on that party member or on my target, etc. But if the layout that you're using doesn't have the code written into it to support this, it may not work. So just be aware of that. You do need to check that your unit frame supports if you're using extra things. There are things such as range indicators and similar type things that are not necessarily part of like the visual look of the unit frame, but are features that people do sometimes want. So you can install those plugins separately, but then you need to check that they're supported. Occasionally on the plugins page, they'll have the code so that if your layout doesn't support it, if you're comfortable with editing the Lua code, you can open up the code for the layout itself and add. It's usually no more than like a line or 2 lines of code that you would just copy from the web page for the plugin and paste it into the layout, and then that would add support for it. But that gets into a little more customization than I think a lot of people would like to do. So just be aware of that. That will do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, remember, pressing the like button is absolutely free. Subscribe and stay tuned for more Game on End.